aside from maybe just being in too big of a hurry, some rush passes and some rush shots, I thought we played really good. So hoping that we'll carry that over into the tournament. I definitely think from last year's experiences, we saw a team get hot, and I don't think we'll take anything for granted this year and try to kind of live by what we've been doing, which is one game at a time.
Are you guys going into this tournament trying to improve your NCAA standing? Are you trying to win the whole thing? What's the mindset going on?
Well, we're obviously trying to win, and that really is, I think, all they're worried about. I mean, they're trying to beat the winner of Iowa State and Tech, first of all, and then we'll see what happens from there. Like I said, last year, maybe everybody got ahead of themselves and let West Virginia carry that thing home. So I think it was a lesson learned about just taking one game at a time. But I mean, we're obviously going up there with the same intention everybody else is, which is to win it.
How do you kind of evaluate conference tournaments? I mean, some coaches you heard say, like, you can build momentum in the conference tournament. Others say maybe if you lose early, you can go home and rest and practice, and that's better. How do you, other than the fact that, of course, you want to win your conference,
yeah,
kind of weigh it?
I think in the women's game right now, considering when the tournament is, I think there's plenty of time to rest when it's over, because we do have the week in between the selection show and when the championship game is. So I don't really look at it as a situation where we need to not worry about trying to win. I mean, you do want to go in feeling really good about yourself. And again, if we were one of those tournaments that backed up right into the selection show, I would say that would be an iffy question. But nah, I think everybody that's in it's trying to win it.
I know it's the opposing team, but Christy Wallace may be done for the year with the ACL. Do you feel empathy to somebody who has paid her dues for 4 years, being a senior?
I'm assuming I didn't know that.
She's got ACL.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Well, she has an ACL.
Yeah, you always feel for a senior. I feel for Audrey. It's always hard when you see someone that's put in 4 years of work, or they're having a good year, or their team is having a good year. You always hate for anything to happen like that shortens their career.
What is Audrey's status?
It's still day-to-day.
Do you have a preference? Iowa State, Texas Tech?
I do not. Played both of them fairly. I mean, obviously Iowa State just last week, so we're familiar. It's not like we had to go through just a few days ago with Oklahoma where we hadn't seen them in 2 months. I mean, we've seen both of these teams in the last month for sure, and we're familiar. And I think the good thing about that, not that there ever is a good thing or assuming anything, is that anytime you go to the Big 12 tournament, there's not a lot of prep talk, because everybody's played each other twice and you're really familiar with each other. So it's really more about energy level and, enthusiasm. And like you said, I mean, are you wanting to be there, or are you ready to go home and take a longer break than normal? And I think sometimes that's what it boils down to.
Brooke said the other day that she thought the team hit a wall last year about this time. Do you feel better about the way your team is playing now going into the tournament, whether, compared to last year?
I definitely think there's a different energy level. And again, it's hard to compare year after year after year, but I mean, I think that the schedule last year took maybe a little bit of a mental and physical toll, the entire schedule from the very beginning on our team. And I mean, this has been a different year. I mean, I heard one of the young ones were telling me the other day that it seems like such a long year because we went to Italy. And she's like, "Oh, we get next summer off?" And they get a break in August, where they did not get one this year going to Italy, and I had forgotten about that. So, I mean, every year is different, but I do feel good about our energy level right now.
What would it mean to the program to win the Big 12 tournament?
I mean, as you guys just asked me, I think we're always playing for better seeding. So I think, first of all, it would probably enhance our seed in the NCAA tournament. But I mean, I tell these guys all the time, I experienced the Big 12 championship when I was here before as an assistant, and I mean, it's a lot of fun. And anytime you get to cut a net down or get a piece of, hardware of any kind, then I think that's a validation that you've got a pretty good team or that you've had a pretty good year.
What's the biggest difference in the Big 12 between regular season and postseason play?
I think everybody has a different energy level, and as you mentioned, last year we may not have had the energy level that it would take to win a Big 12 championship, 3 games in 3 days. But I do think that there's a new energy for every team. I mean, they can wipe the slate clean. I mean, again, you just have to look at what West Virginia did last year. They had a team that got hot and one player that got extremely hot in the tournament, and no one could stop Tynese Martin last year. And I think we can all reflect back on that and say, hey, anything can happen. I mean, we have at least three teams, I think, in the league that they probably feel like they're on the bubble and they're playing for something very, 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 very valuable. So I would be cautious for any of us to think that anything is a given because we have a lot of teams fighting for spots.
How much better off is Joyner right now as opposed to when she first started?
I think she's good. I think that she's in the best place we could have her be, considering everything that she's been through. And I would tack on to that the fact that I thought she was, and I think I said this a few weeks ago, I thought she was getting really comfortable with her role. And then Audrey got hurt, and we kind of tossed her into the starting role, which obviously we all expected. But I think once she got comfortable coming off the bench and what that felt like, she was good. And so then we have to, sort of thrust her into the starting role, and one more adjustment for a young lady that's had to make a lot of adjustments. So I'm really proud of her. I mean, she's trying to mature and trying to really take practice seriously and preparation. So I have seen a lot of growth in Joyner.
You never want to take anything for granted, but Ariel and Brooke made the first team all-conference.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal, isn't it? Even not just for them, but for you as a coach.
It's a big deal just to see them rewarded, and LaShawn also, just rewarded for their work. I mean, those guys put in a lot of, you all know that. Every time you come in here, they're in the gym. And that's just not because you showed up. I mean, that's because that's what they do, and they've lived in the gym basically for 4 years, other than when Ariel's hurt. And I think that that's a great lesson for these young players. Is just that, you kind of get what you earn. And those guys have earned everything that they've gotten.